So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen. And welcome to the second webinar organized by Arafura and Timor Sea's Ecosystem Action, or ATSEA-2, and Oil Spill Response Limited, or OSRL. ATSEA-2 and OSRL has collaborated this year to deliver quarterly webinars. I am Norman Ramos from OSRL. I will be your facilitator for this webinar. Our hope is to share learning and have productive discussions through this webinar. Before we start, we would just like to run through our ground rules for this webinar. So first and foremost, be respectful at all times. Avoid using all capital letters in your chat boxes. Anybody can actually chat to each other. Keep your microphones at mute and videos off. If you have questions, please type your messages in the chat box and we will attend to your messages. Your questions will be answered during the plenary towards the end of this webinar. And as I have mentioned earlier, this webinar will be recorded and the recording will be made available. We will also request you to complete the attendance and feedback form, and this will be shared during the webinar. And please also take note that our webinar is streamed live in ATSEA-2 YouTube channel. So quick run through of the different functionalities of Zoom, and I'm sure most of you are aware of this already. So you would see your unmute and mute button. So please keep yourself on mute at all times. You can also see your start and stop your video, but we do highly recommend that you keep your video off to maintain internet reliability. What's important here is the chat box. So please type your questions or any messages in the chat icon. You wouldn't be using the share screen, but of course, if you want to react, there's the button for your reactions. Right, so the speakers for today's webinar. So we have the honor and pleasure to have the following resource speakers today. So we have Ms. Cassandra Tanya, Ms. Cassie. She's the regional biodiversity expert from ATSEA-2. And actually, it's an honor and pleasure working alongside Ms. Cassie on the delivery of this webinar. So OSRL has been working with Ms. Cassie with regards to these webinars. We will also be joined by our experts from OSRL, Ms. Hon Hui Hang, OSRL's Aviation Liaison Officer, and Mr. Nobel Ong, a spill response specialist from OSRL. So Hui Hang has been working in OSRL for about 8 years, and she has attended to a number of oil spills in Singapore and abroad. She will be talking about surveillance, modeling, and visualization as a response strategy. While Nobel, he's about 4 years in Oil Spill Response Limited already. He will talk about oil spill response strategies. He has attended a number of spills as well. Most notably is the recent spill, which was last year, with regards to a ship issue in Sri Lanka. And we will be hearing Nobel talk about this as well in his presentation. So to start off this webinar, I will pass it on to Ms. Cassie to provide us an overview of the ATSEA-2. The floor is yours, Ms. Cassie.
All right. Thank you, Norman. And I'm going to try to share my screen first, if I may. Okay. I hope everyone can see my screen. So yes, I see thumbs up. Thank you. So again, my name is Cassandra Tanya, but yeah, most of my friends, colleagues call me Cassie. I'm the regional biodiversity specialist of ATSEA-2, and it is my pleasure today to welcome you all in our second quarterly webinar. So I will talk briefly and give an introduction of our project. So the ATSEA-2 is the second phase of Arafura and Timor Sea's ecosystem action program, and it is GF financed and UNDP supported. It builds upon foundational results that realized in the first phase between 2009 and 2014. So as a project, we work in this dark blue region. We usually call it as the ATS region, the Arafura Timor Seas region. It is part of the North Australian Shelf large marine ecosystem, and it is bordered by 4 countries, Indonesia, Timor-Leste, Papua New Guinea, and also Australia. Our project beneficiaries are 3 countries, Indonesia, Timor-Leste, and Papua New Guinea, while Australia provides support. And then in Indonesia, we work in 3 sites, in Aru Islands, in Merauke, and also in Rotendao. While in Papua New Guinea, we only work in 1 site in South Klay, which is part of the Western province. And in Timor-Leste, basically we work on the southern coast. So we work in 5 municipalities from Papalima, Manufahi, Manatutu, Bikeke to Lautan. And then as a project, our focus, we focus on the 5 priority environmental transboundary issues. So first is the overexploitation of marine resources. Second is the loss or degradation of habitats. And third is the loss or degradations of biodiversity. Fourth is land and marine-based pollution. And the last one is climate change. And of course, today's webinar will be linked to this environmental concern, the land and marine-based pollution. Then again, as a project, we have 3 major components. So the first component on governance, second is on improving a large marine ecosystem carrying capacity, and third is on knowledge management. We have 9 outcomes. These are the outcomes, and we have 23 target outputs. So in relation to marine and land-based pollution, we have one specific outcome, the outcome 2.2 on reduced marine pollution. So basically, with this outcome, we try to enhance data information regarding the marine land-based pollution. We try to identify the pollution hotspot, try to control point and non-point sources of pollution, and also to strengthen oil spill early warning systems and also capacities. And then since the last of 2020 till the mid of 2021, we have been working with Dr. Wang Taishin to conduct a regional marine and land-based pollution assessment. Here is the report. So if you'd like to read the report, you can just scan this QR code. And the assessment basically identified 2 regional wide concerns in regards to pollution for the ATS region, which are oil spill and marine litter. And then for marine litter, we actually identified that the southern coast of Timor and also Rote Islands are the most vulnerable sites in regards to oil spill incidents. And then after identifying the oil spill hotspot, we basically, since the beginning of 2022, worked together with OSRL, as explained by Norman earlier, to hold 4 quarterly webinars. So basically, we will organize 1 webinar each quarter in this year. And then the webinar is basically to enable information sharing amongst and also build capacity of the ATS stakeholders on oil spill preparedness and response. And then to do so, basically, we designed the webinar topics to be progressive. So the first webinar, basically, we try to make our stakeholders more aware of the oil spill impacts. And then from there, we'll move to more understanding of oil spill risks, and finally to what it takes to respond to oil spill incidents effectively. And we also, to do so, we also introduce key principles that are involved in preparing for and responding to oil spill incidents. So as I said, and also as Norman said, this is the second webinar. We had the first webinar on 24th of February. three months ago. And then the first webinar was attended by 76 participants from 8 countries. Of course, from 4 ATS countries, but we also have other participants from Malaysia, Nigeria, Philippines, and also Uruguay. And basically, in the first webinar, the speakers talk about causes and fates of marine oil spills, how oil properties would actually correlate with the appropriate response strategies. And then there's also a presentation about the impact of marine oil spills. So basically, we try to recognize the marine oil spill have environmental and socioeconomic impacts, especially for the ATS regions. And then as part of the presentation, the speaker also reminded us it is important to have an inventory of environmental and socioeconomic resources. And of course, lastly, we try to exercise a holistic decision-making that based on resources that can be impacted by oil spills. And then for this today's webinar, our 2 great speakers will talk about surveillance modeling and visualization, and then also oil spill response strategies. I won't go into details because I think it will spoil the fun. And then that's about it. Thank you, everyone, and back to you, Norman.
Thank you, Ms. Cassie. So thank you for the preview of the webinar and of course introduction to the ATSEA-2. Right. So quickly, I would like to talk about Oil Spill Response Limited. So about OSRL, so we are the leading global oil spill response specialist since 1985. So we are the largest internationally funded cooperative. So basically, we are wholly owned by the most environmentally responsible oil, gas, and energy companies who actually represents the majority of the global oil production. So through OSRL, our members would gain access to OSRL's full suite of expertise for the response and preparedness needs on a global basis. So again, we are the largest international industry-funded cooperative. We are owned by major oil and gas production and transportation companies, and we provide resources to prepare and respond to oil spills efficiently and effectively across the globe. Please take note that the resources is not only equipment, but also refers to the expertise. So that would be a quick introduction of OSRL. And to all our participants, you can proceed to type your questions as early as now or during the presentations. So please do not worry if your questions are not read or not answered today. So after the webinar, what we're going to do is OSRL will release an online article to answer all the questions that you have in this webinar. So even if we don't answer it today, don't worry, we will still answer that, and then we will publish an online article. Right, so without further delay, our first presenter for today is Huy Hang. So as I have mentioned earlier, Huy Hang will be talking about surveillance, modeling, and visualization. So Huy Hang, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Norman. Hi everyone, my name is Huy Hang. So just let me share the screen. Do give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Wonderful. Thank you for having me to share on the surveillance modeling and visualizations. So I think without further ado, I just proceed with the presentations. So what we would like to talk about today. So I think there are 3 main takeaways I hope you can gain from these sessions. So I think first, I would like to touch on you'll get an understanding on why we need to conduct surveillance in an event of oil spill incidents, and what are the surveillance tools that you may use in the response. So next, you'll be learning about 2 different types of oil spill modeling and what are their differences. So lastly, you'll be getting to know what does the visualizations refer to and how common operating features helps us in decisions making in a response. So before we dive into details, so let's do a warm-up exercise to set you to the scene of an oil spill incident. So with the help of Rachel, in a short while, you will see a poll that will pop up in your screen. And what I need you to do is just to click yes or no to the picture that you have seen. So there's a total of 3 pictures, and you just need to make a guess if the slick is oil or not. So when you are ready, so you will see the pop-up already on the picture 1. So maybe just make a guess, is it yes or no for whether it's an oil or not. So I see the polling results keep coming in. Just we have 48 participants, and just give maybe another countdown to 10 seconds. Counting down to another 3 seconds. There are still votes coming in. All right. Okay, I think Rachel, you may end the poll. Okay, I have 75% people participate. It's around 36 out of 48. So I encourage more to click the yes or no and just make a guess. There's definitely there's a right or wrong answer, but no worries. I think just to let you to have a feel on what you will see at the oil spill incidents or at the site. So I think all have wonderful answers. I mean, 100% give me yes for those who are participate. So I shall not keep you in suspense. So the answer is yes. It's actually a rainbow sheen. So you just take a note on, I use the word rainbow, which I will explain it further in the presentations later. So are you ready for the second pictures? So Rachel, please go for the second one. Oh, this is interesting. I have yes and no answers. So later you will know whether you get it right or wrong. So keep the votes coming in. Oh, we have quite 50-50 now. There are more no than yes. So do you want to keep the vote going on? Any more supporters for the yes? It's not much of the difference. I'll give another maybe 10 seconds before we close this poll. There are still more no than yes. Going down to another 3 seconds. Make your final vote if you think that is a yes or a no. All right, the poll has ended, and I think we can see that there's actually 19 of you who think that is a yes, and 25 of you think it's a no. So the answer is no. It's actually a red tide. So if you wonder what is a red tide is a phenomenon of discolorations of sea surface. So it is a common name for harmful algae blooms occurring along coastal regions, which results from large concentrations of aquatic microorganisms. So this is not an oil. So moving on to the last picture. So Rachel, you can put out. Oh. So these look similar. So give your best guess if it is a yes or no. It may be a trick question. It may be 2 no in a row, or this can be an odd. Many of you have confidence that it's a yes. You have some no. Keep the, oh, this is quite fast. Many people have voted. There's still a small percentage. So I do encourage those who want to cast your vote to do it in another 10 seconds. Another counting down to 3 seconds. All right, we shall end this poll. Okay, the results here is most of you actually voted for yes, and a small percentage going for no. So the final picture, the final answer, yes, it's actually an emulsified heavy oil. So if you wonder why it's actually emulsified oil, it's actually all oil undergo a weathering process when it exposes to the environment. So emulsified oil refers to oil that takes up water and form water in oil emulsions. So it behaves similarly like a viscous oil. So looking at these pictures, so many questions will pop up in your mind. And I think some questions will be like, what got spilled? Is it oil or not? Just like the pictures I've gone through. So if it's a yes, how much was it spilled? Or where does it go? When does it get there? And lastly, I mean, who does it impact, or what is impacted, and what should be done about it? So ultimately, I mean, as a responsible, responding party, you will need to minimize the impact that in an event oil has been spilled into the environment. So that is the very primary goal, that you want to minimize the impact and the damage is done. So I think this gives us a good context on what I want to cover for today, what is surveillance, modeling, and visualizations. So this tiered preparedness and response may look familiar to you. So it is recognized as the basis on which to establish a robust oil spill preparedness and response framework. So the established 3-tiered structures allow those involved in contingency planning to describe how an effective response to any oil spill will be provided. So from small operational spillage to a worst case release at sea or on land. So the structures provide a mechanism to identify how individual elements of capability will be cascaded. So the SMV is actually one of them. So which helps to collect and evaluate the current informations, as well as to forecast for the response, so that the incident management team can make informed decisions for the response. So often it is the most important response strategies at the onset of an incident. So what is SMV? So I think definitions for the first one, surveillance. So it refers to close observations. So in this context, surveillance uses sensors from the space to the seabed to observe oil behaviors. So we'll discuss the various tools available later in the slides. And moving on to modeling, it actually allows us to predict the movement of oil. That's very useful because ultimately you want to know what you're dealing with and where it will go and where it will impact. Lastly, the visualizations brings it all together, presenting response data in an easy to interpret way that allows the incident management team to make informed, strategic, and tactical decisions. So I think one thing to note is, as technology advances, the tools available for SMV are also continually evolving. So this has changed the landscape for gathering, predicting, and presenting informations in the response, allowing us in the spill response to have a better situation awareness, as well as improving the efficiency and effectiveness of a response. So what are the reasons why we want to conduct surveillance? I think there are many reasons. Firstly, location. So where is the location of the spill? Is it as reported as it is, or is it somewhere else? So definitely you want to verify. So therefore, sometimes just now you see from the pictures, but it's the location, just now I mentioned the coordinates, whether reported on site, and when you reach on site by a, be it whether an aircraft or surveillance, to verify where is the location of the spill, or is there any real spill to begin with, then which lead you to also the eliminations of a false alarm, which just now picture 2 and picture 3. So one gives you a red tide and the other one gives you an emulsified heavy oil. So in certain sense, from the picture, you will see that they are similar, bit of orange, brown substances. So do you think that is oil or not? So you definitely need to set eyes on scene to verify all the details, to eliminate all the false positivities. So such as the algae, the billboards, the conversion zones. Sometimes it's not really that visible like the red or the brownish substance. It can be just the conversion lines, or even the seagrass, or even the cloud shadows. So I think next will be the origin. Just now we just want to pinpoint, is it actually comes from the responding party, or is it maybe it's actually by another nearby vessels or any installations that can cause this spill. So sometimes it may not be you or the responding party to, or the suspected responding party to be. So everything you need to be verified. Definitely, I think you see some movement. So I think a tool will help us, the modeling will help us in terms of the movement. You know, you want to know after 1 hour, 3 hours, 1 day, 5 days, where does the oil actually move to? Do you actually move to more sensitive areas, or where is it impacted the next time? Maybe in 5 hours time, 1 day time, it will hit the shoreline that is very sensitive to the country or to the environment. So in terms of weathering process, so you know that once oil spilled into the environment, it will change its behaviors in terms of physical and chemical properties. So you want to know whether it have evaporated, whether it actually emulsified just now, or even it spreads, or even it actually sink to the seabed if it's a very heavy crude oil. So something that you want to know what will be happening to the weathering process. Next will be the site prioritizations. So as you know, where's the movement of the oil, you want to prioritize the area that you want to focus on for the operations, because sometimes the spill volume or the extent of the oil may be over a large area. So you may not have so many resources to respond. So you would like to make some site prioritizations. So this comes with the information, you will know which are the area to focus first, and subsequently as days goes by, when the resources comes in, you will be able to react accordingly. So you will not be able to deploy all the resources to all the impacted areas. Definitely some site prioritizations you will need to. Planning. So you definitely, with all the information you gather, you were able to plan where you want to respond, where are the resources going to, then coming into operational support. So can the surveillance provide guidance to the response vessels or the shoreline teams to guide them onto the areas where the thickest oil is? So these are all talking about operational support. Later I will show one examples to give you a better context. And lastly, more often you want to do for reporting. So reports to the regulators, to the governments, or even the internal reporting, or even to the media, or public will be very interested. So you would need to all these kind of information to give to make sound decisions, as well as to disseminate the information to the concerned party. So give you once, I think we expand on the operational support. So as you can see from the picture here, a helicopter is tasked to guide the vessels during a containment and recovery operations. So I think it can be used to direct response assets, to respond during the, I think, to recover the oil, and also to contain and recover the oil spilled. Secondly, maybe to target the heaviest oil concentrations. So in such a large extent, of oiling. So where you want to focus first, so you want to target those heaviest oil concentrations. So maybe the surveillance can actually help you to do so. And you want to improve on the encounter rates, because certain areas, if there's very, I would say that dispersed oil, or even there's one more sparse locations or very thin concentrations, you want to move to the heaviest or the thickest oil concentrations to collect or to contain and recover more oil. So I think that will help you to improve the encounter rates. Increasing response efficiency, as I mentioned, also to validate the techniques. So whether the ATSEA containment and recovery is effective, or you actually need to consider even using of dispersants. So all these response strategies will be covered by Nobel later. So moving on to what is the available surveillance tools. So if you're looking at, there will be, this picture give you a very good from the space to the surface and to the subsurface. So definitely you can see some satellites from the space that's talking about the sensors, and also in the air, the helicopters, the aircraft, the drones that's very popular nowadays. And on the land, you want to send some onshore observers to see if you actually to see what is the extent of oiling, where are the impacted shorelines. So often there's one strategy looking at the shoreline cleanup assessing techniques. So there's something that you want to consider. Or even on the sea surface, you want to deploy your vessels with the observer, or even is the teeter balloon systems, until the seabed, which is the ROV, the remotely operated vehicles, or even the AUV, autonomous underwater vehicles, or even the unmanned underwater vehicles. So these give you a better pictures in real life. We are talking about on the surface, the satellites using the radar, and as well as on the optical imagery. So usually we use radar for more on the offshore in the oil spill response, because even in the night or even in the poor weather conditions can give a wide overview of the spill area. So aircraft, be it a fixed wing or a helicopter or twin propeller, it can give you a good context on what's happening with a trained observer. So they're able to give into terms of the quantifications. So I think next, is the upcoming will be the drones. So it's actually unmanned vehicles, and if you cover a wide range in a shorter time. So I think one concern is always the limitations by the permission to fly, because you need to deconflict the airspace, and not certain area is actually restricted. So I think it will be country specific. So different countries have their own, I would say that specifications or requirements to fly a drone. And moving on to the vessels. So I think the vessels is straightforward. You will deploy a nautical surveys to what is the extent of the oiling, what is the appearance of the oil to be like, whether it has emulsified, give a close-up observations, details. And even you can actually deploy a aerostat, which is a balloon, teeter balloon, that you're able to see, as you can see from the slides here, or even a kite. And lastly, these actually the autonomous underwater vehicles is actually works like sometimes to operate actually like a drone but it's underwater. So all this is actually increasing in water surveillance will be actually quite popular, and also undergoing through rapid technological developments. So I think in terms of advance of their sensors, also how the hosing platforms or even the software systems that you can able to view the actual in live feeds, just like the drone. So you can make us more, I would say that informed decisions and fast decisions. So all these different incidents, I think the in-water surveillance is actually very important for monitoring of the oil spill, and also the dispersant effectiveness. Or sometimes you can see on the sea surface, but the under subsea surface, it is something that I think it's always, you want to have the understanding on the progress, whether it's efficient, if it actually can stop at the seabed, there's a pipeline leakage, and what's going on in the sea will be very helpful. So I have to say that this technology is actually evolving, as I mentioned in the very earlier slides. So we are getting more and more tools that will help us to facilitate all the, I would say that response operations and also give a better guidance. Some additional surveillance equipment in terms of the sensors will be the colored photography, which is the digital normal cameras, even for the side-looking airborne radars, the ultraviolet, or even the thermal infrared. So these are some of the tools. We're not getting very technical, but at least this, you know that you can request it, and these are all the ongoing surveillance equipment available in the market. So moving on to area surveillance, the one that you need observers. So you have agreed with me that having a pair of eyes in the air will give you a good pictures of the extent of the spill on site. So there's one term, monitor and evaluate, that always comes to you. So actually it refers to the ongoing surveillance tasking. For example, just now we mentioned about determining the location of the spill, observe the condition of the spill, how much oil is still present, are you able to give a quantifications of the volume of oil on site, or has it been going through the weathering process, naturally dispersing, emulsifying, or it has actually impacted the shoreline or even the wildlife. So whether a known issues with assets has been escalated, it can be one of your observations made. So different situations will result in different kind of tasking. So it be whether it's the verifications or even the quantifications tasking. So since the color of the oil itself, as well as the optic effects, are influenced by the meteorological conditions, which is the altitude, the angle of observations, or even the color of the sun, or an appearance cannot be categorized purely in terms of its apparent color. So sometimes you say this color will be red, blue, or silvery, metallic, gray, or very thin, very thick. So different people have different kind of standards. So therefore, this bond agreement oil appearance code has been developed, able to give you consistency in describing the color appearance of the oil, and also to calibrate between the area surveillance observer in providing an estimate of the oil volumes. So this is certain, just now I mentioned there's the picture one. You say that many people think that is oil. Yes, and I say that it's actually a rainbow shade. So I see how we actually derive, if we actually from the bond agreement oil appearance code. So from the thinness, from the sheen to the rainbows, metallic, these continuous true colors, that will be the 5 codes, 5 color codes. And lastly, others will be the emulsions. So we do not actually give a thickness to the emulsions oil. But we do have to note on the color appearance. And usually emulsified oils give you a very brown and orange color, but we're not able to, unlikely we are able to add oil thickness to it. So I just want to share one experience I have for the recent spill that I attended, as Norma has mentioned, in the Sri Lanka. So I was deployed as an area surveillance observer. So I was on the helicopter conducting missions. So maybe give you a context how this can be done. So firstly, you'll be predicting the oil slick. So just now, I think we have one software, which is the modeling software. They're able to help you to predict oil slick. So we will have this search box, as you can see from the screen. We will define a search box. Then this is the location of the spill. We will actually fly there to actually conduct a localized search. So this is during the COVID times. So we can see that actually everyone's donning appropriate PPE to reduce the skin contacts or minimize the skin contacts between the people present in the helicopters. So I think we conduct a localized search within the search box. Then when we arrive on scenes, you see the conditions, the extents, where's the directions of the oil moving towards. Then you can give spill quantifications in terms of just now using the color code that I have. You define the oil area, you define the color appearance of the oil, and you're able to associate a certain thickness to it, and ultimately able to give you quantifications of the oil volume. It's all estimations, just remember, because it's just observed. It's an observation made by the observer. So some close-up oil, so definitely you want to fly closer to the oil and can take some pictures, and also to know what is the actual color appearance, and to directing operational support. So I just give you a spoiler here. There's something that I marked in the circle. later part, when Nobel show you share with his experience in Sri Lanka, you were able to see what is this. So actually, when you do an area surveillance, you're able to spot certain anomalies. You want to feedback these informations back to the incident management team or the I would say the command center. Then from there, you actually can deploy resources on shore to verify what is it about. So lastly, definitely you want to do recording and reporting. So when I arrive back, touchdown on ground, I will give a call back to the command center to report what I've seen before I come up with a report to see what is the track that I fly to and give you certain pictures on the locations, what happens to the oil, what's the appearance, and what is the extent of the oil. I think that gives you a good, summary on what is actually surveillance about, why we want to do it, and what are the tools available, and also my sharing of my experience on how to conduct aerial surveillance missions. So moving on to modeling. I think we know that time is the essence in the response. So you want to know what it's done and what can be done for the first 24 hours, which is critical, and to make an efficient and effective response. So I think oil spill modeling actually attempts to capture how the oil interacts with the natural environment. So it is able to estimate where the oil will travel and how the chemical and physical properties of the oil will change with time. So I think general rule of thumb is 100% on the current and the speed of the directions of this of the spill. Then also 3% wind speed and directions, and you're able to plot the trajectory, which give you where does this oil move to. So it's very simple, very I would say that mathematical, and can do by manual plotting. But if you want to know what happens 1 day, 2 days later, then likely you would require software. So what is required to run an oil spill model? Definitely you want to know the positions of release. So you give a latitude and longitude for the coordinates, as well as if you know the depth. The depth actually is for the subsurface modeling if it's required. So moving on to the spill details. So it's the date, when it happens, what is the estimate volume, because if you're from a pipeline, you know after you shut down the valve, what is the amount in your pipeline that actually already may leak into the environment, or from the vessels, you already know how much oil product you carry, and you give the worst case scenarios and different estimations. Maybe 1 tank has breached, 2 tank has breached. So you will give an estimate quantity so that we can run the models. So, and the model duration, which means whether is it instantaneous or it is still ongoing. So certain that you cannot stop the source, you will have to be it's an ongoing release. So you will have to know this kind of informations. Definitely the oil type. Likely you can get all these informations from your oil asset sheets that you will be provided. So likely we will require that you can able to provide us with oil asset sheets so that we can actually get information from there. So, and so if you know about all the rest of is the temperature on release, diameters of release holes, gas liquid ratios, the gas densities, if you are talking about the gas plume modeling that we are going for, suspended sediments, load of water. So this is certain parameters that you require. But I think there are some differences between the surface and the subsurface modeling. So I think definitely subsurface will require more details. But later when I show I think the surface modeling, then I think they'll be more straightforward and lesser, and they're able to produce at a faster pace for the reports. Definitely you will need some met oceans data, which is the wind and current. Just like I mentioned, you will need 100% wind, 100% current and 3% wind as the general rule of thumb. So all this will be input into the software and can provide you with the trajectory. So certain oil spill modelings in OSRL, there will be the 3D in the say that it's including a subsurface will be on the OSCAR, and for the surface will be actually using the oil map. So there are still many available kind of oil spill modeling software out there, but these are the 2 general that is used by OSRL. So what is the trajectory modeling? So actually, a trajectory is actually a single model run. It's run on a particular date and timestamp. So trajectory modeling is often requested that it tells us where the oil go and under those conditions that we input. So this also it tell us what will happen to the oil during the model run. So I think this refers to the weathering process and also the fate of oil. So you know that certain like evaporations or even biodegradations, emulsifications or stranding, they can happen, or even impacting the shorelines. So with the outcome, it helps in decision making and prioritizing of resources. So as the spill continues, trajectory can be run daily with updated weather data and spill details. So what is it used for? I think we can use it in spill and exercises. So I think with more certain and real-time data, such as the spill locations, the type of oil product, the amount of oil spill, current and wind data, you can know within the next few days if it would impact any shoreline. If yes, where will it hit the first shoreline? Then how much oil is left on the water surface? Would it cross any maritime boundaries that you need to inform the relevant government authorities? So also, will the dispersant applications likely or unlikely to be effective if viscosity of the oil exceeds 10,000 centistoke? So from the model output, I think it helps us to develop response strategies and identify resources needed. So if the shoreline is likely to impact, then one will have to think if shoreline cleanup operation is required in addition of the ATSEA containment and recovery. So if the oil get too viscous, will one still consider dispersant application or put more resources on mechanical means using the offshore booms and skimmers? So all these informations can enable informed decisions making during a response. So moving on to stochastic. So what is this stochastic? Modeling is actually a combination of numbers of different trajectories. So trajectory is only one run, but stochastic is actually a combination of different trajectories between maybe we're looking at 80 to even 300 individual runs. It tells us what chance there is of the oil going somewhere, and it highlights the worst possible cases. So I think the standard worst case are the most oil ashore, faster oil to shore, and the worst case. So these are then run as individual trajectories, different time line, or different seasons, different conditions, then you overlay together as to form one stochastic modeling. So I think it's often used in the oil spill contingency planning. So you know that to run 80 or even up to 100 trajectories, it will take time. So it's not something that you want to do it during the reactive phase. So if the oil already spilled into the environment, you want the information fast, you will likely to, you can run a stochastic, it depends on what kind of information you are looking into. Maybe it's an ongoing spill and you want to know, I would say it's a very large extent or large spill, then it's ongoing and you know that it's going to months even, then you may want to consider stochastics. If not, actually trajectory is the one that we always go for in terms of response in the spill. So in a nutshell, you can see that it's the same, you will identify what is the release scenarios. So you may look into even different seasons or even different timeline we are talking about. Then you run the same scenario under different conditions. Then you have combined the results to create a stochastic output. So you look slightly different from a trajectory. What trajectory is like telling you where the oil will move to, but this is telling you the chances where the oil will go. So some key points to note, because we are talking about predictions. So you will know that predicts changes in oil characteristics under a variety of environmental conditions. So it will change every day and likely the result may change or the direction may change. So model use wind, tides, and current to predict the trajectory. So sometimes if you're able to have the real-time data or if not, it's a forecast, if certain of I would say the degree of accuracy may vary. So however, we will just need to know a general directions. If the oil moves to these directions, it will actually serve as a guide. So the area surveillance will sit in to see where actually it will be used or it will be located. So just to verify whether the modeling results is accurate. So at least it can give you a direction. how you actually define a search box, as I mentioned just now. So if you want to conduct missions, you need to know a search box, and a modeling can be able to predict the movement, and you can actually define a search box for your operations. So definitely you need to validate and update as the build progressed. So lastly is the visualizations that we are talking about. I have these numbers and the south and the east thing. So with the coordinates, are you able to tell me exactly where this located? I think this gives you a very good representations why we need visualizations. So if I plot these coordinates into the Google Earth, into somewhere else, you actually can know that it's actually somewhere very close to your heart. It's the Timor-Leste area, and I actually point to the Greater Sunrise platforms. So visualization is the actual data itself, or rather is the means and the communication of data. So it can be just a mental imagery. So it will be an image, diagram, or animations that communicates a message. Then what is common operating pictures? So visualization is how we view the outputs of the model as well as other response data. But a common operating picture is a computing platform based on the graphical information systems that provides a single source of data and information for situational awareness, coordinations, communications, and data to support emergency management and response personnel and other stakeholders involved in or affected by an accident. So these are the definitions. So you can see that there's the different platform available, which is maybe it's the Google Earth or even the ArcGIS. So to expand the view, that what should be included in the common operating pictures is a consolidated and integrated single platform that display what and where things are happening in real-time feeds. So from the planning, operations to finance and logistics. So you just want a single platform that actually able to gather all the data, and everyone can view it from this platform to actually make certain decisions, be it the operational or even the technical decisions. So some of them can be like on the ground. You will have all the map and overlays on the video feeds, then the shoreline status reports, and you want to put in the sensitive areas. So when the oil predicts or the modeling predicts where it goes, whether it will hit your sensitivities, then maybe you already actually input all the satellites imagery with all the coordinates. So you want to put it in. So as over time, you build these common operating pictures. So they give you certain kind of informations. So as all the spills always evolve, you will have all these informations in place to make the decisions. There's certain guides in terms like there's one by the IPCAR. So I think you can actually refer to. So there's actually the work package and common operating pictures. And it give you very good informations. And this is why you want to do and visualize the response data. Definitely, just like I mentioned, is actually accepted and integrated components of the effective oil spill response. To provide the strategic information, it presents all the data in a single place. Then you make complex data more accessible, understandable, and usable. And it communicates to others. And actually somehow it brings out the trends, the patterns, or how it moves, or correlations that might go undetected in certain text-based data. So again, it will help to make robust decisions of the data. And lastly, from just now talking about visualizations and common operating pictures, there's certain differences. So visualizations, we are talking about the data itself. It can be just one image, one diagram, or one animations, videos that able to communicate a message. So it's a mental imagery. So you just now from the very first, I think slides for the visualization, the numbers may not mean anything if you do not know where is it, or you cannot visualize where is the location. Whereas for the common operating pictures, it's a platform for displaying and disseminating that data. So it should be user-friendly because you want to easy access for all these complex data, and it should be in a single platform. You do not want everybody to find or hunt everywhere for this data, and it should be in a real-time feeds because so that you can make more robust decisions or informed decisions. So it should be a tool which actually, like I said, that give you a better situational awareness. So it's for those decision makers or the incident commanders back in the command centers to make the sound decisions to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the response. So I think with that, I think I give you a very, they will say that it's a very high level on what is surveillance modeling and visualizations. I hope I actually achieved the three, you still remember the three objectives up there to list the surveillance tools, to able to differentiate between a trajectory and a stochastic modeling. And lastly, what is actually the visualizations and have a better pictures, what is the common operating pictures. So I think that's all from me. Thank you for having me here. So I miss you, Norman, telling me I'm the overrun. So
thanks, Pui Hang. Yeah, so actually we have a number of questions with regards to the surveillance modeling and visualization. I will read that to you later during the plenary and have a look at those messages also so that you can prepare your answers later. But a quick question for you, Pui Hang. Based on your experience, I know you have been into a number of spills already, and most of the time I know you have been doing aerial surveillance as part of your response. So based on your experience, how important it is to have this surveillance or surveillance modeling visualization as part of a response strategy?
Yes, I think I already answered in my slides earlier on, if you have noticed.
Yeah.
So it's a test for, so I think through my experience, as you know that I think I mentioned a very important message. Actually is the most, I think often is the most important, I would say that capability or the elements that we utilize in the tiered preparedness and response wheel. So I think it gives you a very good, I think I would say that it set the scene, or it gives you a informations to provide the onsets of the incidents. So I think for myself, it's something that when I receive a call, was I also a duty manager, so I received a call from the responding party. So I want to understand what is going on, what happens, where it does the oil goes. So all these informations will be required, and often modeling will be the first one that but the responding party will require. So we will run the model, give, and within a few hours, then you will get information that likely where the oil will go, and able to send certain area surveillance or people on the ground to go in that directions to verify the information. So definitely, I would say that this is one of the first two that you want to utilize during a response. So I think then, so that when you receive all the data, everything is set nicely in place, modeling, verified by the area surveillance. Then lastly will be how you want to, I would say that collect the data and display in your command centers, which lead to visualizations. So I think definitely this is something that is very important to set the scene for your response or incident management.
So basically, this is the first, I would say, one of the first strategies that you're going to use in event of an oil spill.
That's right.
All right. Good. Thanks, Pui Hang. So please join us later on the plenary. And to all our participants, please check your chat box. Our platform administrator will be sharing the link to the attendance and feedback form. So for those, you can indicate on the attendance form whether you require an electronic certificate, and we request the participants to complete and submit the form after the webinar. All right, so thank you, everyone. Okay, so without further ado, we now understood surveillance, modeling, and visualization as a response strategy. Now I would invite Nobel to talk about the other oil spill response strategies. So Nobel, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Norman. Good morning, everyone. Just give me 1 minute. Let me share the screen. All right, I hope everyone can hear me loud and clear, and you can see the shared screen for my PowerPoint slides. Okay, so I'll be presenting, my name is Nobel, I'll be presenting on oil spill response strategies. So first things first, I would like to talk about the objectives, very similar to Pui Hang's presentation. So first thing is to be able to list different response strategies at the end of this session, and to understand how to select the response strategies for different type of spill correctly, and to understand and discuss the benefits and limitations of each and every response strategies that I'm talking about in this session. So when we talk about response strategies, the first thing that we should have in our mind is cone of response. So what is the cone of response? Is basically talking about different response strategies that it goes outward from the incident location. So you can see here in the incident location that if, for example, if the spill is an incident well blowout, then what first we have to think about, we can think about is source control, maybe subsea operations like subsea dispersant injection. Then we think about fluorometry, where we verify the effectiveness of the subsea dispersant injection. And moving upwards from the incident location, we have the containment and recovery. Maybe we can catch and recover some of these oil slicks that we might have missed out from the subsea dispersant injection. Then if we are doing containment and recovery, we will have offshore command and staging area as well. And we have area surveillance and area dispersant out in the outer area for area surveillance. I'm sure Pui Hang has already highlighted the importance of area surveillance and area support, that how important it is and what are the different uses of it. So area support can also help the containment and recovery, or even vessel dispersant, for example, which I'll be talking about in the next few slides. So just to have a bit of thinking on what are different type of response strategies that we can apply in a spill in different areas of the spill. And we obviously in the shoreline, if the oil has impacted the shoreline, we have shoreline operations like shoreline protection and shoreline cleanup operations and shoreline survey to make sure that the correct resources are going to the correct locations. Okay. So moving on, I will be diving straight into offshore surface dispersants. So this slide is just a brief overview of what is a dispersant basically. So dispersant have two components mainly. So the first component is solvent carrier. So what is it is that this solvent carrier just maintains dispersant in liquid so that we can spray it onto oil. And the next component is a surfactant molecule. So what is the surfactant? So it's basically short for surface active agents. So what it does is that there is two parts of this surfactant molecule. There is a water-seeking head group, we call it hydrophilic, and oleophilic, which is the tail of this molecule, which is oil-seeking. So because of these two components, it breaks down and basically reduce the oil-water interfacial tension. So by reducing this, it will remove oil from the water surface and break down the oil into smaller droplets into the water column, about 5 to 10 meters in the water column. So by doing so, this will increase the natural biodegradation of the oil. So if we leave the oil in the water long enough, there is natural biodegradation, but if we separate them, disperse them, distribute them into the water column, this will increase the effectiveness of the natural biodegradation. So now that we know what is dispersant, before we think about using them in an oil spill or having this dispersant operation, we have to think about a few considerations. So first things first, the most important thing is regulatory approvals. So if there's no approval from any regulation, then we can't use dispersant at all in an oil spill. So basically, general rule of thumb, regulatory approval is usually given typically for about 1 nautical mile beyond a 20-meter depth contour. The next consideration that we should think about is the dispersant and oil ratio. So depending on the type of oil and the type of dispersant, it is very important that you get the correct dispersant oil ratio to make sure that your operation is the most efficient. You're not overusing or underusing dispersant. So typically, the oil ratio dispersant is about, dispersant to oil ratio is about 1:20. So 1 part of dispersant is to 20 parts of oil for the common dispersant type, which is type 2 and 3. So next, I'll be talking about this. We can discuss about disadvantages and advantages of the dispersant. So what are the advantages? It is a rapid response, and we can cover a large area, especially if we're using something like aerial dispersant. And why is it rapid response? Is that it is much more similar and less, I would say, bulky than if you compare it to containment and recovery. I'll be talking about containment and recovery in the next few slides as well. So it reduces waste and improve biodegradation. I've mentioned that already. So the reason why it reduces waste is basically we're not putting any equipment into the oil, and we're not recovering any oil or waste. So it basically reduces the amount of waste generated in an oil spill response. It can operate in a rougher sea or weather. So if you're just, for example, if you're using aerial dispersant, even if the sea is a little bit rough, if it is not suitable for containment and recovery, let's say, we can still spray dispersant application in a rougher sea or weather. And even for emulsified oil, dispersant can actually break down or reduce further emulsification. But then again, there is up to a certain limit and time window for dispersant to be effective. So if, let's say, the emulsification has increased the oil's viscosity up to more than 10,000 centistokes, then dispersant might not be effective anymore. But then again, it's just a general rule of thumb. And the best way to make sure that if it works or not is to get a sampling and try it out to see if dispersant is effective in an oil spill. So what are the disadvantages? So oil is removed, it is not removed, but it is redistributed. So as mentioned before in the previous slide, we're not containing and recovering the oil, but we are redistributing it into the water column. So that leads to the next disadvantage, which if you use it near a sensitive resource, for example, coral reefs or farm fishes, because we are redistributing the oil and making it into smaller droplets into the water column, it might be toxic and have an adverse effect on these sensitive resources. Okay, and I've also mentioned time window for effective use. So if, let's say, if the spill has been a few days or a few weeks, if the oil has been on the water surface for quite a long period of time, where the emulsification has increased the viscosity, it might to more than 10,000 centistokes, this dispersant might not be effective anymore. And as I mentioned before, we generally don't recommend to use dispersant in shallow water, because we're distributing the oil into the water column. So if the water is too shallow, then there might not be enough volume for this redistribution of oil into the water column. I hope this clears up a few questions and give you a bit of idea of what is dispersant. So I've got a few photos of dispersant application in this slide. So you can see in your top left corner, it's a vessel dispersant application. And the next two photos on the right is basically aerial surveillance. And this photo you can see here is the aerial dispersant. So the fixed wing aircraft goes really close to the water surface to do this dispersant spraying. So it helps when there is a spotter aircraft, as what Poyang has mentioned before, to guide these vessels and even the fixed wing dispersant aircraft, to guide them to correct locations and correct directions where the oil slick is. And as an alternative, there's also a heli bucket option for dispersant application. This is just a nice, a good video to give you an example of what the vessel dispersant application looks like. So you can see the color of the oil. It looks like some sort of like coffee color. So coffee color in terms of visual monitoring, coffee color for oil, it shows that the dispersant application has been effective. Obviously, if you use fluorometry, it will give you more accurate results. So let's move on to in-situ burning. So what is in-situ burning? So basically, it's burning controlled, very important, the word controlled. So it is controlled combustion of hydrocarbons vapors. So we're burning the vapor, not the oil itself. So you can use it on land, snow, or ice, or even, land, snow, ice, and water surface. And we, in-situ burning, we call it ISB as well. So as short form, most of the time we call it ISB. So similar to dispersant, what are the considerations that we need to think about before we use ISB operation? So in this case, oil characteristics is very important as well. So minimum slick thickness and emulsification content in oil are other characteristics that we look for to see if ISB is suitable response strategy. So for minimum slick thickness, it should be around 1 to 2 millimeters to make sure that the heat doesn't escape too much into the water below the oil, to make sure that the heat can sustain the burning. And if there's too much water in the oil, too much emulsification content in the oil, and it will be hard for the fire, the burning to sustain for a longer period. And obviously the next consideration is location. So we need to think about where, if we're burning, we need to think about where the smoke that comes out from the burn leads to. So if the trajectory is towards a residential, in a nutshell, it should be more than 5 kilometers. But obviously there are a lot of other constraints like monitoring, which I'll talk about a little bit more about in the next slide. And obviously distance from other combustibles. So if we're burning, for example, close to a well blowout, which is a continuous release, this smoke may contain sparks of fire, which may spread and make this controlled burning become uncontrolled burning. So it is very important to make sure that this doesn't happen. And for in-situ burning, weather is very important as well. So there's a certain limit for wind. It should be less than about 18 to 20 knots. For wave and current, generally wave, it should be about less than 1 meter high and current about 1 knot. So we're talking about a generally calm weather and sea. Okay, then last but not least, the most important thing, very similar to dispersant, we need to get approval from the legislation and regulation, the local legislation and regulations. Without approval, we cannot just burn the oil, right? So what are the disadvantages and advantages of in-situ burning? So advantages: rapid removal of oil, which since we're burning it, it's a lot faster. High efficiency rates, we're getting the fire do all the job for us. Less amount of waste generated, less equipment and labor, capable for oil mixture with debris. So even with debris, unlike, for example, recovering the oil, since we're burning it, is capable to do that. Minimal waste and oil storage required, since we're not recovering any oil, then so we will have minimal waste required. So what are the disadvantages? Obviously, environmental concerns. Since we're burning it, there is air pollution and also water pollution, because like I mentioned before, if the oil thickness is too thin, the fire will not be able to burn anymore. So some of the oil will be left behind, and we call it residue. But from researchers, we found that the residue is actually a lot less harmful than the unburned oil, because all the VOCs and other harmful gases most of them has been burned off by the in-situ burning. And the next one, like I mentioned before, very important, risk of loss of fire control. So we have to make sure that this is controlled burning and to make sure it doesn't become uncontrolled burning. It needs optimum weather conditions, as mentioned before, and safety concern, obviously, for public and also responder safety and health. So moving on to containment and recovery. So we've talked about dispersion, we've talked about in-situ burning. So let's talk about ATSEA, containment and recovery, or sometimes we call it offshore operation. So for this is just a brief overview of containment and recovery. So where can we use it? We can use it offshore and nearshore in like harbors and even in the Delta region near the sea opening. Full recovery can be difficult to achieve because we're using skimmer and depending on different type of oil. Recovering 100% of oil on the water surface can be very difficult to achieve. The operation is limited by weather because we are containing the oil with boom. And if we're using skimmers on the water surface, if the weather, the sea is too choppy, then this might not be very ideal. Response time, it may take a lot longer than the first two response strategies that we've just talked about. Recovery efficiency, I mentioned before, it might be hard to recover 100%. And what are the resources that we might require in a containment and recovery? Vessel of opportunity, equipment, booms, skimmers, we might need them local or from overseas. Trained manpower, because these booms and skimmers, they might need expertise from someone like our hospital responders. Recovered oil storage. So this is actually very important. Waste management is usually one of the most typical bottleneck in a offshore operation. So waste management and oil disposal has to be. I have to highlight that this has to be considered thoroughly in a containment and recovery operation. So in this slide, you can see a few offshore booming formations. These are just diagrams of, so you can see on the top left corner, this is the J formation. So basically two vessels required, one towing support vessel and one deployment and mother vessel, which is positioned closer to the apex. That's why it's in the J formation. So that's where the mother vessel can collect the oil. And in the next photo you see here in the middle is the U formation, where three vessels are used in this case, and two towing vessel, one towing vessel, one deployment vessel, and another vessel for recovery. And on the top right corner you see here is the side sweep system, where just a single vessel is used, where it does both containment and recovery at the same time. So this is more suitable for like targeting those smaller slicks. And in the bottom left corner you see here is the V formation, where it uses a specialized response vessel to collect the oil that is contained by these two vessels in the V formation. So these are just a few good photos to give you an idea of what it actually looks like in real life for containment and recovery. So you can see in this photo here, this is a side sweep system. Okay, side sweep system. And in the top right corner, this is a collection. Most likely this is a J formation, where the collection recovery of the oil is being done at the apex of the J formation boom. Okay, and this in the bottom left corner you see here is booming around the vessel to contain the spill at the source. So since you now know about different type of formation, let's talk about different type of booms. So there are different type of booms in different responses. So let's talk about rigid or fence boom. Sometimes we call it solid flotation boom. So what are the good things and bad things about this boom is that it's quick to deploy. You don't have to inflate it. since it's already solid flotation type boom. So it functions well in a calm sea. But because it is solid flotation, you cannot deflate it. It requires significant storage space. And due to the shape and design of this type of boom, it has a less effective wave following characteristics than the inflation boom. Let's talk about inflation curtain boom now. So this is a diagram of inflation curtain boom. So we have a air flotation chamber and a skirt with the last chain, which will help to contain the oil. So one of the good things is that it has a good wave following characteristics of because of the shape and the weight of that's provided by the ballast chain. You can deflate it for storage, so you can actually put in like 150 meter in an aircraft pellet. So you require a lot less storage space comparing to solid flotation booms. But because we need to inflate it before we deploy it, ancillaries will be required, such as like air blowers. Next, we have shore sealing boom. So this is, as it sounds like, it's mainly used in shoreline, for example, like beaches, sandy beaches. So it's a good, effective barrier in intertidal areas because this type of boom, shore sealing boom, have typically 3 chambers, 1 air chamber and 2 water chambers. So this 2 water chamber help with the sealing of the beach or the intertidal area. And again, similar to the previous type inflation curtain boom, you can deflate it for storage, so you need a lot less space comparing to solid flotation type boom. But the disadvantage of this is poor sealing on rocks. So if we're using on rock, we have to be mindful of this. It can be easily damaged by sharp objects because the entire boom is made of different chambers, air chambers and water chambers. So if we put it on sharp objects or like sharp rocks, it can damage the boom, and it requires more ancillaries. So since we have to inflate it using air and water, so we will need both air blowers and water pumps. And lastly, we have absorbent boom. So this, I think, is the most common and in the market or in the industry. So this type of boom is usually used to assist other type of shoreline boom. So if, let's say, for example, if we're using a shore sealing boom, and because of the gradient of the beach, there's a gap that the shore sealing boom is unable to seal, you can use this absorbent boom to seal off to help to assist the shoreline deployment. It's a very simple deployment, useful for small spills as well. But the problem with it is it contributes to generation of waste since it absorbs the oil. So the entire boom itself becomes the oily waste, and it's not for long-term use because these type of boom have a limit in the amount of oil it can absorb and the amount of oil it can stay afloat in the water. So I have a small, short interactive quiz prepared for everyone. So please scan the QR code, or you can actually go to menti.com and type in this code. And I'll also be sharing the link if you don't want to use your smartphone for this quiz. Let me just change the sharing screen. Give me a minute. Get the link for everyone. Okay. The wrong slide, sorry. Okay. Everyone managed to get into the slide, get into the quiz? I see about 4. I'll just give about 30 seconds for everyone to scan this and come to this, the quiz. Please, I encourage everyone to participate in this quiz. You see more people joining? Right, so I hope everyone is able to join this quiz. In the interest of time, I'll be, let's get right into the quiz. Let me start the countdown of 10 seconds. So basically it's showing, I've given you different type of booms and what do you think is the most suitable for offshore oil spill, like you see in this photo. Okay, so the correct answer is inflation curtain boom. So I can see most of you got it right. So that's good. Moving on to next question. So the question is, what type of boom you see in the option will be most suitable to use in a beach shoreline oil spill? Great, everybody's selecting C. We start the countdown of 10 seconds. So everybody's choosing the same answer, I guess. Okay, someone choose inflation curtain boom as well. Okay. So the right answer is actually both B and C. So nearer to the shore, we can use the shore ceiling boom, and outwards to the sea, inflation curtain boom will be used to contain the oil or protect the shoreline from an oil spill. So in this scenario, is this an oil spill in a river, for example, in a river? So yeah, so what do you think is the most suitable type of oil boom? You can choose multiple answers. I'll give it about 30 seconds for everyone to choose your answers. So it's very interesting. I can see a lot of people have different ideas. So most of all different type of boom, all 4 types of boom have been chosen. So that's very good. All right, let's look at the correct answer. So the correct answer is actually all except the shore ceiling boom. So usually a shore ceiling boom is used in those like beach or shoreline type of scenario oil spill. So yes, solid flotation boom, solvent boom, inflation curtain boom, all these three type of booms can be used for this type of oil spill. So that's all for this quiz. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. So let me move back to the slides. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, let's move on without further ado. So now that we have discussed about different type of booms, let's talk about recovery devices. So there's a few different type of recovery devices that we call them skimmers. So we have oleophilic, vacuum, manual, mechanical, and wear type skimmers. So let's go through one by one. So what is an oleophilic type skimmer? So it's basically made up of drums or disc that loves water. Oleophilics, if you remember in Dispersant, oleophilic means it loves water and it hates oil. So if you put this in a oil a surface where there's oil and water mixed, this type skimmer will be very efficient in recovering oil. But each different skimmers have a suitability for different type of oil. So for this oleophilic type skimmer, it is more suitable to work with light to medium type viscosity oils. The thing about this type of skimmer is it can be damaged by dispersant. So if we've already used dispersant on an oil spill, we need to be mindful about using this type of skimmer in that oil slick that is already been sprayed with dispersant. And it is a little bit less successful with emulsified oil because of the water content in the emulsification. Next, we have wear skimmer. So basically, it has like floats that is designed to position itself in the water oil interface, as you can see in this photo. So it can work with light to medium type viscosity oil, but because it's just recovering at the interface, it tends to have a higher water content pickup, so about 7% of water and 30% of oil, but it can be a lot faster than the oleophilic type skimmer, and it is able to recover emulsified oil. I have a video here to give you a better idea of how this skimmer works. So you can see that the entrance, where the oil is collected, is positioned at the oil-water interface here. So that's how the oil is being sucked into and being recovered. Let's move on to vacuum skimmer. So it's very similar to the vacuum that you might have at home. So it's just basically just vacuuming the oil, maybe shoreline or even near shore oil spills. You can recover any viscosity product. It is a bit more labor intensive than the other type of skimmers, and it's about the similar type of water pickup to the wear type skimmer, about 70% of water and 30% of oil. And then we have mechanical skimmer. It is suitable for medium to heavy type products. So because of the nature of this type of skimmer, it uses like claws and brushes. So it needs thick layer of oil to be efficient. So if it is like a medium or light heavy product, products, then it might not be effective, might not be able to pick up the oil into the skimmer. It can recover emulsified oil with a very high content of viscosity. It can tolerate debris as well, more than, for example, wear type skimmer, but it's not efficient for recovery for lighter products, like as I mentioned before. And then lastly, you have the manual recovery, where you can recover any type of viscosity because mainly you're just using spades and just scooping them up. But keep in mind, it's very labor intensive. So after we talk about different type of booms, dispersant, in-situ burning, and ATSEA containment and recovery, last but not least, we will discuss about shoreline cleanup. So shoreline cleanup is usually done in 3 different stages, stage 1, 2, 3. Stage 1 is basically skimming, recovering, and pumping of free oil that is on the beach or on shoreline. So this is basically done to prevent the oil from remobilizing. So in shoreline, typically there's a tide. When the tide comes in, the oil comes in, and we have to make sure that we pump out all this free oil before it gets remobilized with the next coming in tide. And stage 2 is to just start cleaning up on the shoreline. And stage 2 is the final polish, where the question is asked of how clean is clean. So for shoreline cleanup, it is more of a project management than a deployment. So there's a lot of careful planning required, a lot of logical progress more than specialist expertise, a lot of manpower intensive, very manpower intensive, logistically demanding. You need logistics to, for manpower to transport the recovered oil back to waste management. It is expensive since it is very manpower intensive and a lot of logistics is involved. And there's actually different varieties of type of shoreline affected. And in fact, getting access, actually getting there to the site can be an issue before you even be able to start cleaning up the site. So there's something to be mindful of. So that's all for all the different type of response strategies that are for this session. So I'll be sharing a few good case studies for my session. So the first case study is Indonesia well incident that happened in 2019. So this is the incident location, and I'll be sharing a bit of a timeline of what happened for this incident. So on the 12th July 2019, there was an oil spill that originated from drilling activities. So about 3 days later, the incident was declared an emergency. And so this oil spill was allegedly caused by a gas leak in one of the offshore block. So the incident location is about 2 kilometers north of Karawang, and is due to this, it polluted the North Sea of Karawang, West Java. The spill owner deployed assistance from in-country Tier 2 response company and Boots and Coots to combat the oil spill. And on 23rd of July, about 11 days later, OSRL received a notification from the spill owner regarding this incident. And on the 5th August, OSRL representative is deployed to Jakarta to sign the contract with the spill owner. And after the contract was done as non-members agreement, on the 22nd of August, OSRO headed down to the spill site to deploy ATSEA Containment and Recovery. So that is one of the response strategies that we discussed in the previous slides, isn't it? So I have a few photos here, a few good photos that was taken during the oil spill response while some of our staff was there. So this is the incident location that you can see in this photo. This is the shoreline impact from this oil spill. This is actually our octopus skimmer at work in action, collecting oil from the apex of the containment and recovery. Another good photo of our octopus in action. This is a photo of our staff doing the servicing of the octopus skimmer between each operation day. In this photo, you can see waste management using IBC to contain the oil that is collected using the skimmers. So we have octopus skimmer on the left, and in the middle is the sea devil skimmer that was deployed on site from Singapore base. And we have, you can see in this photo, a lot of IBCs that we use to collect the oil from the sea surface. Next, I'll be sharing the Sri Lanka Shoreline Response 2021. So both of these case studies I'm sharing, they are the most recent and the most prominent oil spill responses that OSRL, especially Singapore base, attended in the last few years. So this is actually from last year. I attended to this spill myself. I was the first batch to attend this spill. So what happened is on 20th May 2021, there was explosion, chemical fuel emission of a container vessel about 9 nautical miles northwest of Port Colombo in Sri Lanka international water. And OSR was notified of this. And what happened is after this explosion, this entire vessel was on the seabed at about a depth of 21 meters. So it's not exactly very deep water. So the interesting thing about this oil spill, is that other than oil, actually the most impact is the nurdles. So you can see on your right side, these are the nurdles. So basically they are small plastic pellets or small plastic balls. So there are millions and billions of these nurdles that the container ship was carrying. And because of the fire and explosion, these nurdles were washed up on the western and southern coastline of Sri Lanka. And it actually covered about 300 kilometers of Sri Lanka coastline. So it can be quite devastating for the shoreline in Sri Lanka. So I've got a few photos, and all of these photos were actually taken by myself while I was responding to this spill. So you can see in this photo here, these black plastic, they are molten plastic from the white plastic pellets that you've seen in the previous slide. So some of them can be very huge. This is one of the cleaning method that was carried out during the response effort. So this is a sieving method that you use to separate the plastic pellets, the nurdles, from the dry sand. This is a flotation method where we use it for the nurdles that are on the wet sand, where you just sort of like put a mixture of sand and the nurdles in the water, where because of the plastic nature, it is lighter than sand, so it flows up to this water surface. That's where we can separate them out. And this is what Poyang mentioned in her slide. During her area surveillance, she spotted anomaly, a big structure on the shoreline, and I was actually on the ground, and I saw it was actually a whole container that was washed up on the shoreline. In this photo, you can see a bit of waste management. That's how the nurdles and bigger molten plastics are being collected and transported to the warehouse for waste management. This is also another very useful method of separating the nurdles and cleaning the beach. So this is called a trommel. It's very common in beaches like in Australia, where you use this trommel to separate the plastic rubbish from the beach. But this trommel is a bit of modified, and this trommel you see here in this photo is actually a prototype in testing. It is modified. The mesh of this trommel is modified to be able to separate the small nurdles from sand. So it was very useful and effective as well. So this is the end of my slides, but I do have another quiz for everyone. So let me share the screen and just give me 1 minute. Right, so if you can scan this QR code, oh yeah, let me give you the link as well. Chat box. For anyone who's not comfortable with using the smartphone for this quiz. Right. So please scan this QR code, and I encourage everyone to try and join this quiz. It's actually quite fun, actually more fun than the previous one. So I just start a countdown of 30 seconds for everyone to join in the interest of time. So I see there's about 10 people in the quiz, so I hope more of you guys can join this quiz? All right, more people joining. All right, I'll be moving on. So if you are not able to scan it, please use the link that I've provided in the chat. Yeah. So the first question, what are the different oil spill response strategies that you've learned today? So I'm sure on your phone or on your screen you can see a few blanks. So just type in any oil spill response strategy that you remember that we've discussed in this session today. Just any that comes to your mind. Just type in any amount that you want. If you can remember just one, just type in one and submit. Great, the first one, containment and recovery. Any more? I'll give it about 30 seconds as well for everyone to input your ideas. In-situ burning, natural, yeah, dispersants. In-situ burning, oil in-situ burning, observation, monitoring is good. Shawling cleanup, yeah. Booming, yeah. Burning, yeah, it's very good. Any more ideas? All right, ISB, yeah. Monitoring evaluation, yeah. All right, that's very good. So yeah, that's about covers most of what we've discussed. So Pui Hang went through a very good presentation on monitoring observation, and I've talked about in-situ burning, dispersant, containment and recovery, shawling cleanup. So very good that you guys remember most of it. So now it's a quiz where different players will be competing. So please put in your name. You'll get a cute character assigned to you, and we'll start the quiz. So I'll give it about. So if you answer faster, you can get higher points. So, which is not true of using dispersant. So there's a few questions. So choose carefully. It's not true of using dispersant. Time's up. Let's see who got. So most people use, you can use in shallow water near sensitive resources. Yes, because the question is not true of using dispersant. So you cannot use it in shallow water near sensitive resources. So, yep. So leaderboard, who's leading? Simon, congratulations, Simon. You got the fastest. Very good. Moving on to the next question. What are the advantages of using in-situ burning? So is it less amount of waste generated, capable of removing oil mixture with debris, or you can operate in rough weather conditions, or is it all of the above? Let's see. Yeah, so all of the above is not the correct answer because the third one, in-situ burning, you cannot operate in rough weather and conditions. So the first two answers, whoever answered the first two is correct. Let's see who is leading now. Okay, Simon is still the leading person. Very good. Question 3. So for offshore booming, U formation, how many vessels are required? I hope you remember this. There's a few types of booming. So for U formation booming, how many vessels do you think is required? But just take a wild guess if you can remember. All right, 2 vessels and 3 vessels, equal number of answers. So the correct answer is 3 vessels, 2 vessels for containment and 1 vessel for recovery. So who is leading? Simon is still leading, no? But Henderson is catching up real quick, very close competition now. And Mr. Ganger is not far behind as well. Last question. Remember, answer fast to get more points. So what is the most suitable type of oil for mechanical skimmers? So the options are light viscosity, light medium, or medium to heavy viscosity oil. So which do you think is the most suitable for mechanical type skimmers? Yes, most people got the right answer. So that is very good. So let's see who's the winner for this quiz. Whoa. Henderson overtook Simon. So congratulations, Henderson. You're the winner. So yeah, that brings to the end of my PowerPoint slides. To be, yes, so let me just go back to my slide.
Yeah, thanks, Nobel.
Yeah.
Can I get Pui Hang to on her video for the quick plenary that we will have? Okay, so we have Pui Hang. Okay, so quick questions. Before that, again, reminder to our participants to answer the attendance form. So again, the link is shared via chat box. So please do answer that and then tell us whether you require a certificate. Okay, so quick question. So we have a couple of minutes to finish or to answer some of the questions. So let me ask this question to Nobel first. So this question is about in-situ burning. With regards to in-situ burning, would you recommend in-situ burning to be used in an area where you have sensitive marine environment or you have a sensitive ecosystem?
Yes, so since we are burning the oil, it creates a lot of environmental pollution. So both in-situ burning and dispersant application, we have to be very mindful about the sensitive resources in the vicinity. So it depends on the sensitive resource. So, but typically I would say it might not be recommended, but obviously you'll need to go through proper assessment using SEMA, NEBA. So you have to do a proper assessment, but typically in a nutshell, yes, in-situ burning and dispersion, they're not recommended for use near sensitive resources.
Okay, so again, a proper assessment is needed before you can use in-situ burning. Is that correct, Nobel?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right, good. Thanks for Pui Hang. Given you have given us a number of surveillance options, so any specific surveillance options that you could recommend using it at the Arafura in Timor Seas? Or would there be such recommendation?
Yes. So I think we shared quite a few options. I think there's always advantages and disadvantages to the various type of surveillance tools. So I think the very common one that I think we'll use will be the aerial platforms. So to do the area surveillance, so I think that can be done using, as explained, is the helicopters or the fixed wings aircraft, because it gives you a fast and wide coverage of the spill area. But for sure, if you want to do a close-up observations on shore, I would say the observers and the nautical surveys will be able to give you quite a good close-up look on the oil. So I think it will depend on the applications in terms of what at the stage you are in. So I think in the beginning, definitely you want to go for the fast and wide coverage so that you know what is the extent of the oil, you want to know what to do next. So definitely I think aerial platform is something that you want to consider. For sure, I think satellite, because you have lesser restrictions, you can actually define the area of, I would say that search box or the area that you want to look into. However, I think the disadvantage will be, I think, the time. So I think for the first image being obtained by the satellites, it will depend on various factors. So I think in time critical wise, I think area platforms or area surveillance will be a recommended choice.
So basically, Priya, what you're saying is we start with aerial surveillance, but as we want to get more clarity on the image, then we could use other platforms as well.
Yes, that's right.
Right, good. Again, another question to Nobel. This one again for in-situ burning. From your experience or personal opinion, is there a weather condition that is acceptable or not acceptable in the in-situ burning operation?
Yeah, so I think in one of my slides, I've gone through actually in-situ burning actually need a very calm sea and good weather. Because we are containing the oil with the boom, so basically the type of sea calmness that we require will be similar to at sea containment and recovery. So it's about wave height of about less than 1 meter and current of about 1 knot. If it is more than that, we might have current failure or like splash over failure, which we might lose control of the in-situ burning. And we need to think about the wind speed as well. If the wind speed is too strong, the burn might not be able to sustain. And if it is too strong, you might lose control of the burning again, because you might get like higher wave heights where it will have a splash over where you lose control of the fire, and it will lead to undesirable effects. Yeah.
So if it's a choppy weather, choppy current, you wouldn't recommend in-situ burning?
No.
Right. Okay, so I think we have one more, we have time for one more question, and I will pass this on to Pui Hang. And I think you have done some modeling before as part of your response, Pui Hang, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So question is this, there are information on the current, direction and speed of the current is often difficult to obtain. So do you have any tips or good options for obtaining this kind of data?
Oh, of course. So I think I think there are free weather data available for the public domain. I think same with OSRL. I think we also utilize them, as it's impossible to obtain or to purchase data for every country, as we support our members worldwide. So I think some of the online available source will be the Combinations, MetOcean's Marine Service. So I think we need to just register a username, and you can able to download the data, or even the boil weather. So I think you will be able to access to certain days of the wind and the current data. As well as I think where one popular will be under the NOAA, which is in the States, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's department. They actually have a very good and I would say comprehensive websites to show you different kind of even modeling tools, weather data, heat pass, or the forecast that you're able to use. So I think something that for you to able to visit and have a look. However, all said that the downloaded data need to be further processed so that it will fit into your oil spill modeling software that we'll be using. So I think you're able to download, but I think importantly that you're able to fit into the software you have to process it further.
When you say feed, that means it should be compatible to the modeling software.
Yes, correct.
And I think what we could do also is we can write down all of those websites that you have mentioned, Pui Hang, and then we can release it as part of our online article. Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, right. So thank you, Pui Hang and Nobel. I think we have reached the end of our webinar. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for participating in this webinar. So for those who haven't completed the attendance and feedback link yet, please do complete that and then indicate whether you need a certificate or not. We would really appreciate if you could complete the said attendance list. So we will be seeing you again. We have 2 more webinars for this year. These are scheduled in Q3 and Q4 of 2022. Respectively. So please do sign up for our upcoming webinar. So the link is shown in your screens. And also follow us in Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Same thing on behalf of ATSEA. We do thank you for your participation and thank you for all your questions. So don't worry if we didn't mention your question today, but rest assured we will answer your questions via online article that we will be releasing sometime soon. So again, thank you everyone.